So welcome to part 2 of I Eat the Same Thing Every Day. In last week's video I showed you the breakfast that I make for myself every morning and the lunch I make for myself every afternoon. So in this week's video I'll show you how I make myself a week's worth of dinner in less than an hour of cooking time, and then I'll speak a little bit more about the question of why I would eat the same thing absolutely every day. Okay, so the story behind this curry is that ever since I moved out and started living by myself, I used to cook in batches and then just eat that same thing until it was done. And I used to have 2 or 3 things that I cook for myself on a regular basis. But then one day I realized that I liked one of them more than the others. And so instead of constantly eating food that I didn't like as much for the sake of variety, I decided to just stick to that one thing instead. So this dish also underwent some evolution when I moved back to Melbourne, but it's remained more or less unchanged for about the last 2 years. Okay, so making my curry, I've broken it up into a couple of different parts. The first part is making the curry sauce. So it starts with onions and chili. You never really know how hot the chilies are until afterwards, so I usually only stick to one. And then I add chicken and some veggies, so eggplant and sweet potato. I actually only discovered eggplant reasonably recently. It's quite a versatile addition. You can add it to almost anything. You'll notice that I have quite an efficient cutting style. What I'm trying to do is basically do as few cuts as possible to get things as small as possible, so that works really well. So actually making it is reasonably straightforward. All I really do is put all the ingredients together and mix it around for a bit. And I got to admit, recording this was really fun. It's like a cooking show where I get to show you everything that I do. So this time I'm using a curry paste out of a jar, but sometimes I do it just by myself using spices. So put in the chicken until it's actually cooked on the outside. And then I'll add a can of coconut milk. Again, as you can see, all I really do is just mix everything together and let it cook by itself. So once I put these veggies in, then this will just cook by itself for a while. So just to make a bit more space, I put it on a different element. And then that just simmers away while I make everything else. So the next part is making the rice, and rice is probably one of the easiest things in the world to make. I used to sometimes experiment with things like pasta or noodles or things, but rice is just so much easier to make. Just add water and cook, and then it's done in 10 or 15 minutes. So the choice of rice is really just based on being really easy. And then once that's done, I can have another quick check of the curry sauce, and that's coming along nicely. Sometimes I just stir it every once in a while just to make sure it doesn't stick. And then finally, part 3 is a stir fry. So you'll notice again the same cutting style where I just try and cut things as efficiently as possible. This is mainly just to save time, because often I cut while other things are cooking, so I can't really afford to have it take very long. So I start off with the harder vegetables that can stand a little bit longer in the pan, and then move on to slightly softer, so a few mushrooms, and then finally bok choy or other kind of Asian green, just to get some nice greens in there. So actually putting the stir fry together literally only takes a minute or 2. It's really hot pan, put in the veggies, and then just push them around for a little bit, maybe a minute tops. Add a little bit of soy sauce that gets absorbed by the mushrooms, and after about a minute or 2 this is completely done. So like I said, very, very, very quick. So by the time that's done, I just check on everything else to make sure it's all good. And then finally, just for fun, adding a little bit of something extra. So I think one of the reasons I do this is I just really like using this little pan. It's just really fun. And you might have seen in last week's video, I had a fried egg for lunch. So it's pretty much a similar process. Flipping eggs is just fun. Just flip, flip. Okay, so now that everything's actually cooked, just put a little bit of everything, rice, curry, veggies and fried egg, and we're done. Easy. Why would I eat anything else? So you'll notice that I cooked quite a bit. So the one more step is putting them away in little boxes. So I put one serving away in a box like this, and that can go in the fridge or freezer, and I've got all my meals for a week. So we Aspies are famous for loving our routine, but I kind of get the impression that it's often twisted into a negative thing to have such a consistent habit all the time. It gets portrayed as inflexible and rigid and obsessive, and we are also famous for being resistant to change and not dealing with change very well. So I wanted to kind of ask you, after you've seen my habit of my food habit every day, does it sound rigid? Does it sound inflexible? And have a think for yourself. What do you think would happen if, for example, I didn't have any bananas for breakfast in the morning, or I ran out of tomatoes or spinach for lunch? The answer is I have breakfast without a banana, or I just have less ingredients in my sandwich. It actually doesn't matter at all if I miss one or two ingredients, or if I'm not even home and I eat something completely different. I'm actually really proud of the fact that when people ask me, is there anything you don't eat? I can really confidently say, I eat everything. Well, I suppose more accurately, I would say I'm actually allergic to certain forms of heavy metals like mercury and lead don't tend to agree with me very well, and also certain types of plastic I find really hard to digest. But anything commonly classified as food and I'll be completely fine. And it's probably worth noting at this point that the reason I don't really care what I eat when I'm not at home and not in control of my own food is because I have such a stable system 90% of the time when I do control my own food. So why would I eat the same thing every day? Let's have a quick look at the pros and cons, right? Arguments for, it's really, really cheap in terms of time and money. I spend less than an hour a week making all my food for the entire week, and I spend about as much as the cost of one meal at a restaurant feeding myself for a week. It's really easy because I've practiced it so much. I don't need to think. I can be in and out of the shops in less than 20 minutes. It's really healthy. I really enjoy my food, and because it's so stable most of the times where I can't control what I eat, I don't really care what happens because I know even if I suffer through a meal I don't particularly enjoy, the next time I'm going to have something that I like because I prepare it for myself. So now when I try and think of all the reasons against eating the same thing every day, the only thing I can think of is a lack of variety, because obviously it's the same every day. But even that said, I have a huge amount of variety within my diet every day. So it's almost like I get more variety every day by having the same variety every day. Does that make sense? Anyway, so that's been my food habit of what I eat every day and some of the reasons why we do it. Maybe you can relate to some of that, or at the very least, hopefully you've got a better understanding of why someone like me would choose to do that. Next week will be this month's Patron's Choice video with the topic chosen by our wonderful Patreon community supporting this channel to give you free weekly videos. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you again soon. Bye. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for weekly content just like this one. If you'd like to get even more involved, you can join the discussion on social media or support me by becoming a patron. Finally, I value your time, and you'll notice all my videos are ad-free, so please help me to cover what you want to hear by leaving me a comment and telling me what you think. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you another time.